Another busy day in the litigation against Illinois' gun and magazine ban. A little bit later on this afternoon, I'm going to head down to the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court, where Judge Stephen McGlynn is going to be hearing from federal firearms licensees of Illinois and several other plaintiffs trying to get to the January 1st deadline for people to register banned items with Illinois State Police by January 1st. The plaintiffs are looking for that to be ultimately delayed while all the confusion about the gun ban rules gets dealt with. Well, there's a lot of confusion with the gun ban rules, and you've got Illinois State Police who have filed second notice rules. What exactly are those rules? Well, to talk a little bit more about this from IFOR, we've got Josh Witkowski, who's shared some of the responses they've gotten from Illinois State Police on the questions they have. And, of course, the Illinois Federation of Outdoor Resources. Josh, you guys focus a lot on, for instance, the issue of how hunters are impacted by all of this. Good morning. Thanks for taking time with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Greg. Yes, we do focus a lot on how this particular law is going to affect the outdoor sporting community. And the unfortunate reality is that it is going to affect a great deal of firearms owners who are completely unaware that it's going to affect them. There are a large number of shotguns still that are caught up in this mess. We've warned about it for a year now, give or take, and nobody is taking it seriously. Nobody wants to do what is necessary to educate firearms owners. We're doing what we can, but we are a very small nonprofit. Meanwhile, the Illinois State Police, which has the resources of the ability to contact every FOID card holder in the state, just puts things out on a website at a whim. They don't do their best either to educate the public. So we feel there's going to be a lot of individuals turned into criminals on January 1 because of the way this law is being implemented and what the rules are in this law.
So we're looking at a news release that you sent out yesterday that indicates, some of the responses you got from Illinois State Police, and kind of spell that out for us. What are we looking at here?
So if folks remember, I testified back on November 2nd in Springfield at one of the public hearings regarding the implementation of these rules. And what was supposed to be a public hearing with answers turned into a public hearing of, hey, that's a great question, write it down and submit it. So we wrote it down, we submitted them, received a response back on November 21st. And the response is helpful in some parts, nonsensical in others. But this response is now going to become part of the rules that are being considered today at the JCAR hearing up in Chicago. Specifically related to shotguns, two of the big things we were asking, one of the big things was, how do you determine shotgun capacity? Greg, you and I have talked about this before. Is it determined by the maximum number of shells it can hold, or is it determined by chamber size? Now, this is a very simple firearms question that should have been readily answered. And instead, the answer did not come until the middle of the registration period where they're changing these rules. And that answer ends up being they're going to consider it by chamber size. And this is going to be helpful to a lot of hunters out there, to a lot of people who have 5-round semi-automatic shotguns. But where it is not helpful is the next thing that's an issue out there, and that's the issue of magazine tube extensions. You can have a magazine tube extension on a firearm. That firearm is now considered a so-called assault weapon. If you take that magazine tube extension off, the tube extension is supposed to then be registered as a assault weapons attachment. The issue is you won't be able to register that after January 1. So if you have a waterfowl gun, which you use an extension tube for when you're hunting geese, you take the tube off when you're hunting ducks, you're not going to be able to use that firearm for both purposes because of the way these rules are being implemented.
Josh, of course, we're kind of skimming through some of what you sent out here as well, and it shows stuff about like airsoft items. Talk a little bit about that, because I mean they did clarify, right? I mean, you got the first set of rules that were filed September. Okay, well, I'll let you get there in a moment. But the first set of rules were filed September 15th. This law passed months beforehand, right? January 10th, it was enacted. They wait until September 15th to drop the rules 2 weeks before the October 1st deadline. And now you've got second notice rules. They spell out something about airsoft, but you're saying that they don't make it clear enough?
No, so what they ended up doing, we specifically asked, there's a situation with both airsoft and paintball where you can utilize forward grips, vertical grips, angled grips, which are considered assault weapons attachments because they can be used on modern sporting rifles. Companies such as Magpul, great company out there, you can use their grips on both a modern sporting rifle and on a paintball or a airsoft gun because they use Picatinny, M-LOK, key mod, all the modern styles of attachment points. And when we asked about this specifically, the response we got back was a nonsensical response regarding integral parts of so-called assault weapons, and then says that something specifically designed for airsoft would not be considered. We didn't ask about things specifically designed for airsoft or paintball. We asked about these grips that are compatible with both airsoft paintball firearms and modern sporting rifles. And they did not address that. And by every reading of what they have submitted for second rules, if you have a airsoft or a paintball gun and you have a vertical grip, angled grip, anything that could be attached to a semi-automatic rifle, you're going to have to register that grip. And there's a great number of citizens that have no clue about this.
So I guess the thinking is they could possibly find themselves facing a class 4 felony or a class 3 felony based on the circumstances of how these things are found. What's next here? Of course, I mean, today, later on, it's going to be in federal court. We talked previous segment about what's going on in the Naperville case in the U.S. Supreme Court and the en banc review being denied by the Seventh Circuit. But this morning, you've got the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules that are set to meet. And what do you anticipate is going to happen there from what you're hearing on the ground?
Unfortunately, I have a feeling that this second set of rules that are being introduced today with just 19 days left in the registration period will end up either being adopted by agreement or just by JCAR taking no action. JCAR is 100% bipartisan. They're split equally down the middle between Democratic and Republican parties. It takes a majority to be able to do anything, to change anything. I don't expect that majority to be there today, unfortunately, though I am hoping to be pleasantly surprised. We believe there's some additional information that may come out during the JCAR hearing that is going to be critical to Illinois firearms owners regarding this bill or regarding this law. So strongly encourage people to pay attention to that. And definitely watch that Southern Fifth Circuit. Judge McGlynn's going to take a look at this. I don't know how you can say it's easy for individuals to follow the law when you're changing the rules with 19 days left. And when you're creating situations that, well, I mean, let's go back to the waterfowl gun. Waterfowl hunting is $30 million economic, or not 30 million, $300 million economic impact to the state of Illinois annually, over 25 million in taxes, tax revenue associated with waterfowl hunting. And now, by the way, they've submitted these rules, waterfowl hunters are either going to have to purchase a second firearm for specific use, or they're just not going to be able to use their firearms they're already purchased for their intended use.
It's pretty wild where we're at right now, but obviously a lot of moving pieces, and we'll be tracking that all throughout the day today, as I'm sure you will as well. Josh Witkowski, again with IFOR, greatly appreciate you taking time, and we'll definitely be connecting again soon, all right?
I appreciate it. Thank you, Greg. And if I can, just one last thing. It was said during debate the entire time that sporting arms were not going to be affected, that Illinois Department of Natural Resources was going to develop a list of so-called sporting arms used for hunting. And that did not happen. Basically, they created an appendix. That appendix exists, but it doesn't list out specific firearms. And if you're a hunter and you keep your firearm at home, you still have to register. And that is something that nobody anticipated, because that is not what was covered in debates.
And one thing that's kind of gets muddled in the mix of how laws are made and how bills get passed. Some people already saying in the chat live this morning that Illinois State Police isn't a legislative body. But Josh, you and I have watched how these things get worked through the system, and yeah, they pass a law, and then all of a sudden the administrative agency is tasked with trying to make sense of that, and that just so happens to be what that administrative rule process is. Greatly, again, appreciate you being with us, and we'll definitely talk again in the near future. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
It is Bishop on Air. Thanks for hanging out as always. And we've got, of course, to continue the coverage of what's going to happen today, because it's not just the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules that are set to meet. You've got the Southern District of Illinois Federal Court that's going to be hearing the challenge of trying to delay the state's January 1st deadline, because if people don't have that delayed, then there's concern people are going to be turned into felons overnight come January 1st. When I chatted with Costas Morris, he's an attorney with Michelle and Associates. He shared kind of, the why this is happening on December 12th, the same day that you've got the JCAR meeting. It's kind of there's a weird what do you call it? Coincidence? I don't know, but either way, today's going to be interesting with JCAR and then the Southern District of Illinois. Here's Costas. And where are you at? Let's get you on. I, for some reason, don't have audio coming from that channel. Just have to see what the holdup is. Here we go. All right, let's crank that up as well. Oh, that's why I didn't have that channel up. Live broadcast, people. Live broadcast here. Here's Costas. Let's get the audio all lined up for you and fire.
And we don't know yet if JCAR is going to approve those. Last time the vote was 5-5. Now, do I expect that vote will hold? Probably, but it's not it wouldn't be insane if one of those people flipped and said no, and then we'll be thrown into chaos. If JCAR rejects the proposed revisions, then we're stuck with the emergency rules, which have all the confusing problems that even ISP admits are confusing. That's why they're revising them. But even assuming it all goes smoothly and JCAR approves the new rules on December 12th, that leaves people just a couple of weeks to register during the holiday season. That's unprecedented, we think, in terms of, you can say that rules being published is sufficient notice, but typically people have months or years before things take effect. Now they have days, so we're hopeful the judge will see it our way. And what we're asking for in this motion is you can leave, the state can leave registration open if it wants. If people want to continue submitting affidavits, we have no problem with that. We just don't want the deadline to be enforced until sometime after this litigation has concluded, or at minimum, at least until people have received sufficient notice. And to your point, the state has the FOID data for everyone. Yes, maybe some people change addresses, but if they did a letter, they could get a massive amount of notice out to people. I don't know why they haven't sent everyone a letter about this to give them sufficient notice.
So again, that's Costas Morris, an attorney with Michelle and Associates, representing the plaintiffs, federal firearms licensees of Illinois, versus Pritzker et al. And that case is going to be heard in the Southern District this afternoon, while you've got JCAR meeting in the morning. And again, I'll do what I can to update you. I'm going to head down to East St. Louis. I was going to try to tap into it virtually and take sufficient notes, but I got a message from the court yesterday. It said that the case is set for a motion hearing via Zoom. Per Judge McGlynn, the courtroom will be open for access to the media. As the courtroom will be open, no media will be granted access into the Zoom conference itself, so that means I'm going to have to travel down to East St. Louis and attend this in person. But if you track me on Twitter or X, you should be able to follow along as I can live tweet out as fast as possible from inside the courtroom, so we'll keep you updated there. But clearly still confusion about the rules, and we've talked ad nauseum about the issue of the registration rates and 2.4 million FOID card holders, about 6,400 have registered. The total comes out to around 0.25% last month, when the total was that much. State Representative Bob Morgan, who championed the ban on certain semi-automatic firearms, he talked about what his thoughts are of the low registration rates last month.
This is new for the state of Illinois. As you noted, historically, we've registered people with our FOID card registration. This is the first time we're registering weapons themselves. I also think there are a lot of individuals who have these weapons are considering whether to sell them to someone out of state, which is a provision in the law that they're allowed to do. So I do think this is a function of cramming for the test, that people will wait till the last minute. They'll see there's obviously, we're still waiting for a ruling from the Federal Court of Appeals. Some people are waiting for that. But I also expect that number to increase as people recognize that they want to be law-abiding citizens and they want to be consistent with state law, and they will register their existing legacy weapons. Otherwise, they're risking their FOID card. And I think the vast majority of people are just committed to being law-abiding citizens the way they are now.
So again, Morgan saying it's people cramming for the test and they're waiting for the Seventh Circuit's opinion to drop. Well, that Seventh Circuit opinion dropped, early November? And the number really hasn't changed from where it's at now, 0.25%. I think at that time it was a 0.18% or something. So regardless, you've got these registration rates where people, the Seventh Circuit has made their decision now. They've denied non-banc, and it's still being challenged in the courts, not just with the Southern District, but also with the U.S. Supreme Court. So clearly continued moving pieces. Here's Ryan Spain, a state representative on JCAR last month, talking about the next steps here and what the possibility is for, say, a motion to object and to suspend the emergency rules.
We continue to work with the Illinois State Police. They've promulgated emergency rules regarding the registration of certain firearms. They just finished having their public hearings. They had 3 throughout the state. So now it's time to collect all of the feedback, which was very, very extensive. And they've committed to reporting back, answering those very meaningful questions for citizens, for responsible firearm owners throughout the state, and addressing changes that should be made at our December JCAR meeting. Yeah, we need to move quickly, though. We need to understand what changes are happening, because there is January 1st requirement. So I think it would be better to see some adjustments from the state police in December, rather than waiting for after a deadline has passed and then understanding what changes might be made for permanent rules. Yeah, I think there are a number of unresolved issues, so I look forward to seeing if they come any closer to resolution. I think ultimately we're waiting for some action on this now at the Supreme Court level. The Supreme Court of the United States is going to need to weigh in on these issues, and I expect that they will at some time. But you raise a lot of very fair questions. For in the meantime, what does this mean for law-abiding firearm owners in the state of Illinois, who continue to raise a lot of legitimate questions to the state police about their requirements and responsibilities?
But should there be a vote to suspend?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I called for a vote to issue a formal objection, which resulted in a tie during our October meeting.
State Representative Ryan Spain, a co-chair of JCAR, being asked last month about the possibility of voting to suspend the rules, which could suspend the rules and possibly leave some questions to be answered as to what the next steps would be after that. But clearly we'll watch all of this. So I promise I'll do my darndest to get you guys updated this afternoon on what the latest is, not just out of JCAR, which if you want to follow that live, go to thecentersquare.com/Illinois. Later on this morning, a live link will be posted where you can watch along live. Again, thecentersquare.com/Illinois. We'll have the JCAR meeting there live. Then I'm going to be heading down to East St. Louis in the afternoon for that open court motion hearing on trying to delay the January 1st deadline. So I'll report about that as well. So a lot of things going on. Of course, stay with Bishop on Air for the latest, and you can like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you enjoy the program, you can check out some of the merchandise below, so be sure to do that as well.